Yes, I'm here to present my paper in the student competition today, and thank you for joining. So to start off, we all know that Royal Road passes are effective in the game of hockey, and that's what inspired me to do this paper. So this is a simple visualization of the Royal Road. So passes that crosses this line are an effective way to score goals in hockey. But I wanted to look into what would happen if we divided the rink into more zones. So these new passes that we will look into are passes that go from one zone to the other. And the methodology of this is a very simple approach. It's just an algorithm that goes through the data and basically identifies sequences that start with a pass in one of the zones and then has a reception in one of the others that is followed by a shot. So totally, there were 156 games analyzed, and the total amount of goals were 821. And from these sequences, I identified 446 goals. So compared to the total amount, that is more than half of them. So these sequences are very important. And this heat map, we can see the origin zone and the destination zone of the passes. So not surprisingly, the slot is an effective zone to receive a pass and shoot from. Next, I have looked into some analysis of the sequences. So each dot on this scatter plot represents one of the zone transitions. So for example, one with high expected goals are most likely a reception in the slot. And we can see a positive correlation. So this tells us that an overall view of the teams, they tend to prefer these sequences that lead to a high expected goals value. There are also under and over performing sequences. So this means that there are some sequences that happen a lot, but does not yield as high expected goals value as one might expect. But on the other hand, there are also sequences with a high expected goal value that is not happening as much. Next, I have looked into the team performance correlation. So each dot on this plot is one of the teams. So again, we can see that teams that have more of these sequences, passes from one zone and reception in the other, have a higher expected goal value. Now this is fairly trivial, that if you have received a pass in one of these zones and that leads to a shot, that should lead to higher expected goal values. But what's interesting from this plot is that there are some teams that have higher expected goal values in total, but have have fewer sequences. So this tells us that there are teams that are better at finishing their opportunities. And there are teams that maybe need to practice more on finishing. And lastly, here are some examples of the zones. So we can see that there is a big difference between the best performing teams compared to the worst performing teams. And looking closer at individual teams can show us like where they excel and where they need to improve. So the conclusion of this paper is that these sequences are very important since lots of goals come from them. And at a general level, teams choose smart sequences that lead to high expected goal values. But there also seem to be some sequences that could be used more to ensure a higher expected goal values. And we also saw that there are room for improvement for many of the teams. And finally, some suggestions for future work. Now this work has been fairly basic by just getting an overall view of it. But I think it would be interesting to dive into more team specifics regarding this. So to see what teams perform the best at and what zone transition you are particularly bad at. To get some insights on partly how the opponent might play, but also what is a good match for your team. And this could also be done at a player level. And lastly, more advanced approaches can be used. Like, for example, if we had some advanced tracking data for the goalies, then we could use that instead to have this rigid approach that with the back-to-back events that we used now. So that's it from me. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to questions. Yeah. This one does. You may hear me from there. Yes, I am. Yeah.
I guess you haven't looked at actual goals.
Excuse me?
You look into expected goals in this model. You haven't checked for actual goals.
No, it was only expected goals.
Yeah. One approach for future work would be like when we do these kind of models, we assume that the XG model is the answer.
Yes.
If you reverse engineer this and do it with real goals, I think you will see what kind of sequences the expected goals model underestimates and overestimates. Yeah. That's maybe something for future work.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, a couple of similar questions. Maybe I missed it, but did you split them by strength at all?
Strength?
Yeah, by whether it's power play or even strength.
No, I did not do that. Okay. And that would be very interesting to do, absolutely, because these sequences probably happen a lot in power play.
Yeah. And another thing, I think in Sport Logic there are like you get the locations for attempted passes, right? Because I think like the success rate of these plays is obviously like an important factor in it, because obviously like passes to the slot are great at, like, if they're successful, that's a great way to generate a chance, but just trying to get a pass through to a player to the slot is a lot harder than playing a pass to the point.
Yeah. That would be interesting to look at, to compare.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was in the data or not.
No.
Okay.
But it could probably be like derived, but I didn't look into that, like failed passes. Thanks for the tip though.